See, it makes you go. You can't see this yet. Actually, I'm going to show you what it is. It goes through this when you don't schedule it first. See, it makes, and see, that's what I hate. Hello, everybody. I always hate when I hit the stream button, and it just kind of like just does it, and then off it goes. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Digital Asset News. Take the top stories in cryptocurrency and digital assets, and try to break them down to bite-sized pieces. Today, we got a treat. We got a good treat. Mike, the investor, is here with us to talk all things crypto and just a couple of stories that have been going on. Just like we just saw with that nice little thumbnail there, we had to see that Mike Novogratz, not really a big fan of Cardano. So we're going to go over that. We're going to go over some G7 news. We're going to go over some El Salvador news and central banks getting into the mix and all this craziness. But I brought Mike on. If you don't know Mike, hi, Mike.
How's it going, Rob? How's it going? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great. It's hot over here. I know you're in the central part of the U.S. I'm in the Southwest. It's like 102 today. I'm doing okay. So far, so good. But I brought Mike on because I like Mike because he has different opinions and views than most of the people that I talk to. I mean, he's a crypto guy. He's been in crypto for how long now, Mike?
I actually got in crypto March of 2020.
Yeah, see? So he's been in for a little bit, and he's made some pretty good calls. And some of these calls, well, apparently Mike here has owned Cardano since it was in the pennies. Good for him. I know a lot of people are jealous right now. He's also been a big believer in Voyager, a big believer in, I mean, obviously a little bit of Bitcoin here, but a couple of ones was BTT and Ethereum Classic. And before we get on to the stories, I just want to make mention of one thing. I want to congratulate Mike because he gave up his JOB, as I call it, just over broke the job, 2 months ago, month and a half ago.
About a month and a half. So April 26th was the exact day.
Nice. So everybody's sitting there that's like, I hate my job. I'm in this cubicle, or I'm at home, or wherever you're at, if you're in Australia or Europe, whatever else. It's possible. So Mike, before we get on the other stuff, tell us the real story, like how you're able to do that in such a short amount of time. Because that's, I think, what really people are here for.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thanks. And so what I did was, first things first, I made sure I took care of all of my debt. So I made sure I didn't have any personal loans, no credit cards, and no car payments. So literally all of the debt that you could have, I made sure I didn't have any. And so the only bills that I had to pay for is just kind of like your typical bills that come every month, groceries, electric, stuff like that. You can't really do anything about that. And so,
nice.
Absolutely. And so my wife and I, we live definitely in a nice place, off the grid a little bit, not off the grid, but in the suburbs a little bit from the city. And so, but we completely took care of all of our debt. So that way we were able to do that. And so she's still working for her job, of course, right now. But for me, I was able to utilize my content and other things to be able to leave my job. So what I did was I made sure before I left, I made sure at least YouTube itself was at least providing 2 to 3 times what I needed to live off of. So that way, if I ever hit a rough patch, or let's say the YouTube algorithm changed, or just, whatever happens, nothing's perfect. That way I will still have something to fall back on. Plus I got other things as well that can compensate for that. So I always say you always want to have a security blanket for each source of income. And so if something happened with the YouTube, where do I go from there? Right. And so the whole idea is to have another security blanket to go with each source of income. They always say you want to have 5 to 7 sources. Well, I believe each one of those sources should be backing up each other. Yeah,
exactly. And that I think is the big thing, to have these multiple streams of revenue, right? Because if we have those, everything kind of works itself out. Because if you just have all your eggs in one basket, like I used to do back in the day, and that one thing goes away, I mean, it's a tough life. Because I know right now you sitting there at home are probably like, man, I put a bunch of money into crypto and I got the job and like, that's it. So that's why it's good to bring people on and show that, hey, there's a lot different opportunities or different avenues to go down than just X, Y, and then that's it. And hopefully you don't mess it all up. All right, man. So that's good. You got the JOB. Congratulations. It is possible, everybody. And Mike is not using his investments yet. And if he bought Cardano at fractions of a penny, you can bet he's got some. He's waiting for the big stuff to happen around August when those smart contracts, right?
Absolutely.
So first of all, let's jump in. I want to just give everybody a little bit of context of where we are in the grand scheme of things. So, share this screen. So like we talked about, we're going to talk about Mike Novogratz and his apparent disdain for Cardano, the G7 issue that's going on, and then a little bit about bankers giving support to El Salvador. It's weird. So real quick, hey, Mike, let me ask you something. Because I mean, you're on YouTube and you're like, your thumbnails are like decent. There's nothing like crazy. You don't have that Home Alone face, and you don't have like the most crazy titles, which I do appreciate. But I will have to say, sometimes even I use some crazy titles and a little bit of crazy thumbnail just to get people on there. But this weekend, did you expect that dip to come through? Did you think it was going to go even farther, or did you think we're going to flatten, or what did you think was going to happen this weekend?
Is this before the Elon news about accepting Bitcoin again, or
before? Yeah.
Before, things were looking bearish, you know, just being honest, you know, things were looking kind of bearish, but at the same time, we never really know. Cause I made a tweet as well. I'm not sure if you saw it. And I was like, hey, potentially, I think we could see a 20K Bitcoin before we see 100K plus Bitcoin. And so just an opinion, of course I could be wrong, but we never know.
We never know. Exactly right. So that's the great thing about crypto. I personally, so let's say, what would you have done if it did go to 20K?
I would look at what's the best opportunities is available at that time.
Yeah, me personally, I'm telling you right now, if it goes to 20K, see, this is a prime example. Hold on, let me share this with somebody.
Yeah.
So here's a prime example. So Mike got in March 2020, right?
Yep.
Which was a great time because that's when everything crashed during that. I mean, that was the Black Swan event. So Mike got in pretty darn cheap. I think Bitcoin was around 5,000. You were looking at Ethereum around 110, 130, 140. Correct. So like, I got in 2017 when it was around those same prices, but I was able to accumulate a lot more than Mike here. So Mike got in, probably dumped a good amount, and here we are. So for me, and this is what everybody has to be aware of. When you are watching people on YouTube or Twitter and they're talking about how they got these diamond hands and they can last forever, it's because probably they've been investing for a while. If you just got in at like 64,000 and you dumped a lot of money into it, it's a little bit more dicey in that situation. So take it with a grain of salt if you're like, I wish I could have done this or that. It's okay. It's just it's all about the time that you get into. So prime example right there, me and Mike. All right. So real quick, BTT. You and my friend George say I'm a moron. Well, George says I'm a moron for not getting more. I got a little bit. Tell me why you were always talking about BitTorrent and how great it is.
Yeah, so I think the use case, man, I think the decentralized storage is not even a fraction of developed yet. And when we look at how much we have on cloud storage today, everything we have is digitally stored for the most part. Even if we're using a hard drive, it's pretty much stored. And so when you look at the two biggest cryptocurrencies that have the most market share in this sector, Filecoin and BTT, first you got to follow the money and look at who's using it as well. They have a lot of utility far as the users. Yes, it has a ton of coins. And honestly, I was surprised, Rob, when you said you owned a little, because I know you are real big on tokenomics and max supplies. I was like, man, okay.
It was mostly because of you and George. George wouldn't let it go, so I had to get it. I had to get a little bit.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
And so for me, the decentralized storage case, the file sharing, and then the also has the largest live streaming platform running on BitTorrent, which is DLive. And that's also, it doesn't have to be the biggest one, nor am I saying it's going to be the biggest one. But when you are the first one, you're able to at least establish some market share, which I think is going to be big for them as well. And we look at the ability, all the staking abilities as well. All the different platforms that you can use to stake BTT. There's a lot of platforms that are still staking it, even with it being completely down. I'm still up on my BTT. When I first started talking about it, it was 10 tenths of a penny, right? And so if you bought back then, I mean, you're still up, whereas a lot of people probably didn't buy then. So they're probably panicking, which is understandable. But when you look at how many people are still holding it, it gives it confidence as far as investors, because they see the true utility of it. They see the importance of holding it just for holding an asset that's going to pay you. As far as Cardano, you can hold it and get paid for it. You know, that's the whole beauty of it. And so secondly, you look at the use case, the storage, file sharing, and being able to store things decentralized. You know, I think Filecoin is going to be the #1 for most important, but I think for just everyday storing, it will be BTT. It's cheaper, it's faster.
It makes sense, because so we always talk about this with Theta, because, you know, Theta, it's great for streaming services. And what's great is, like, if you're, okay, let's take Google as an example, right? Google, if they want to increase their bandwidth and increase the amount of storage that they have for all these videos, because let's be honest, everybody uploads some crazy video and it's still there, which is amazing to me. So they have to buy a warehouse. They have to put in servers and hard drives, and they have to staff that area minimally, but that's a lot of money, especially as things start to run out. So let's just say that you could do it in a decentralized way and pay people for their unused storage capacity on their phones or on their hard drives or whatever else. Then you could do a lot more things for a lot cheaper. So for Theta, I get it. And then for this one, I could get it, especially for documents, and especially as people never get rid of their junk. Like I've got one of these apps that I have different notes all stored into that I just deleted today. And I'm like, I've had this for like 5 years. I'm like, I don't use this stuff, but someone was keeping it, and that's how it goes. Okay, so BTT makes a little bit of sense. Tell me about, now this one makes no sense to me, Mike. This one makes no sense to me.
Okay, talk to me.
Ethereum Classic. You got to explain this to me. Now,
Okay.
let me know.
All right. So the reason why I think Ethereum Classic is going to be valuable is because of the fact that ETH is moving to 2.0. It makes it the only programmable smart contract blockchain with a fixed supply, 210 million, I believe. So right there gives it digital scarcity, gives it the store value, and then it also has the ability to potentially still talk to Ethereum and Bitcoin because it's programmable. And so when you look at that use case, and then when you look at following the money, Grayscale doesn't have a fund for ETC just to waste money. And so that's another thing as well. If we look at some of the players that are using it, I have to go back and look. I think we have Google, we have Amazon, we have, there's a few players that are partnered per se, helping build on this blockchain. So I look at following the money. I look at the use case that it's going to be used on, far as potentially it's being used for the Internet of Things, the precious metals market, the digital store value, the digital scarcity, because it only has so many. And so I think that's going to give it value. Also, it moved to K-Check 256, which is now completely different blockchain compared to ETH, and so a lot of the ETH miners would pretty much hack Ethereum Classic, right? Because they were able to take the computing power and hack Ethereum Classic, whereas with people who truly don't understand blockchain may think that this is hacks on people actually trying to steal the funds of the, that's on the blockchain, whereas it's actually ETH miners because they have more computing power attacking Ethereum Classic. And so when you actually look at that and look through it through that scope, you kind of look at it from a different aspect.
Yeah. Okay. I'll put that in the back of my head for the next time someone talks great about Ethereum Classic. And I'm like, whatever. Okay. So
I respect that, Rob.
So we got 2 out of the way. That's good. And then I know you're a big proponent of Voyager. What do you like about Voyager? And then after this, we'll get to this Mike Novogratz article.
So Voyager, I think it makes sense. I think it's the next up and coming brokerage, so it's not an actual exchange, but it's the next up and coming brokerage, the max supply of it, the utility that you get for using Voyager, why they make you hold Voyager, not per se why they make you, but the benefits they give you for holding Voyager helps it make sense to hold it, right? Which increases the value of it. And so when we look at Pat Ackerman, he talks about the Metcalfe's law, and we look at the potential value that Voyager could have. it makes sense. And so even not even looking at the Metcalfe's law, if we just look at you're able to hold a appreciating asset that only has so many coins that you're able to make passive income on, just that within itself makes sense. When you look at what's behind it, the team, the company, so you can, I mean, we can go on and on about it. Right. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, you're right. I mean, the team and the tokenomics looks pretty good. And of course, they're going to start burning Voyager tokens for all different fees that they collect or transactions. So I'm like, yeah, that sounds pretty good. The big thing is, can Steve deliver? Can he get this Voyager loyalty program off the ground? Can he merge together with the France exchange over there so they can have European access? And can they actually get it into New York and Canada? That's where I get the most questions. If they can do those things, if they can do those little things, I think it'll be awesome. But I still believe in them. And I mean, there was a time when I had to stop recommending because they went through growing pains. I think everybody here can attest to that.
I remember that.
Yeah. But I mean, look, if you go from 60, 70,000 people to 1.6 million, I think there's even more now, you're going to have problems. And I'm amazed that they actually got up to here. So I recommend them, and I still see them as going up later on. So speaking of Ethereum, let's talk about an Ethereum Bitcoin bull, my man Mike Novogratz here, and what he thinks about Cardano. This just came out, and I was kind of, when I read this article, I'm like, oh, he's going to say it's awesome. And now it was like the exact opposite. So Zach Guzman, who did the interview with Mike, he says, this didn't make our full interview, but Mike Novogratz is also on the list of smart people. He's also on the list of smart people who remain shocked by Cardano's valuation. He says, they have done something to create this weird cult, end quote. And then just to move on, Mike started to ask questions about Cardano back in March, April, a couple, 2-3 months ago. And he says, this is going to be great. He says, can anyone make a real bull case for ADA? Does anyone build on it? Use it? Why is the market cap so high? Should it be a funding asset? It's one of the few cryptos I haven't traded in my life. And then lastly, Novogratz has been seen several times touting Ethereum. Of course, he loves Ethereum, the major competitor of Cardano in the industry. And back in March, Charles Hoskinson claimed that Novogratz, who was a college roommate of Joe Lubin, the CEO of Consensus, was drinking for the Ethereum Kool-Aid. And just real quick, in case, I don't know if that is 100% accurate. Maybe it is. That'd be kind of interesting. But Joseph Lubin, if you don't know, let me see if I can find. He is one of the co-founders of Ethereum, which is kind of funny. And I'm like, okay, so that's it. So Mike, what do you think here? Do you think he's got a good point about what's going on? Or is it like, no, it doesn't make any sense?
Trying to think how to put this.
Yeah, say tread lightly, as they say.
Yeah. I think everyone's entitled to their opinion. I personally think that Cardano is gonna be here. I think so. We got layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, layer 4. I think there's going to be, 4 to 5 major blockchains on each layer, so Ethereum doesn't have to be the end all be all. Cardano doesn't have to be the end all be all, but I definitely think those 2 blockchains are going to have a lot of market share on layer 2. That's just kind of my thoughts.
It makes sense. And then this is what I think there's always a big battle between Cardano and Ethereum. And everybody's just butting heads. I don't know, when you got in March, I don't know what it was. I can't remember what it was like back then, but when I got in 2017, it was like, first of all, the big thing was Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash. And everybody's like, you're a moron if you like Bitcoin Cash. Well, you're stupid because you like Bitcoin. And it was just the weirdest. I was like, what the hell's going on? And then I feel like it is the same thing, but I do feel just like what you said, is that there's room for everybody. I mean, can one company do everything for everybody? It's impossible. So if Ethereum 2.0, which as I understand it, correct me in the chats, like I know people like to do, I don't believe that they're going to hit these goals, and Ethereum 2.0 is going to get rolled out next year. So I don't think we're going to hit this year. So when that happens, just like what Mike said, market share is going to get eaten away. So if you have a smart contract functionality, or hopefully with Matic and Polygon, all those things, layer 2 solutions, I think if you got Avalanche over here getting a little away with their smart contracts, then you've got Cardano, and you've got Tezos, and you got, name your other smart contract function, Binance Chain. They don't have to win, but if you're at this is your 100% market share. And then you got 10% chunk out from one, 12% from somebody else, 3% from somebody. All of a sudden you're like, what our market, what happened?
Exactly.
So I don't know what here's the question. Here's the question, Mike. For Novogratz, I wonder how many of these investors really just dig into all these projects. Do you think they do? Because I mean, there's so many, right? And this guy's a billionaire, so he's got probably some other stuff to do.
Absolutely. I'll say this kind of, since we're kind of talking big name status, did you notice how Floyd Mayweather is supporting Ethereum pretty heavy?
Oh, is he? Well, I heard he was on the show. That's all I know as far as like the Miami thing.
So even I take it one step further. So him and Logan Paul fight, his boxing trunks had Ethereum on it.
How much do you think they paid him for those Ethereum logos?
Probably a pretty penny.
Because Floyd is not going out there going, hey man, no, just put it on there for free because I'll be Floyd free money Mayweather this time.
Absolutely.
They paid that. Shoot.
Yeah, oh. I think this when you ask how big of a research they do, I think it depends on what project resonates with them and which one do they understand easier. And I think that's kind of where they go with, because when we look at people with a lot of money, they don't want to really spread it too thin. They want to put it in one major thing and leave it and kind of do what they do. And this is, if we think about it, this is what whales do. They have a huge amount of one crypto and they sway the market. It's the same thing, with people with money, right?
Yeah, it does. And you know what? I've fallen victim to this when, as things were starting to heat up. We were talking about, I forgot which project it was. I was talking about, I think it was Theta. And, it was Chainlink. And I was getting like kind of emotional about it. Like, why don't people like Chainlink? And then they were talking about Band. They were talking about the FUD articles that was coming out by Zeus Financial. And I had to take a step back and think to myself, Rob, are you saying these things because you believe so much in Chainlink, or are you saying these things because so much that you have so many Chainlink? Because I bought them like a long, long time ago when there was nothing. And I had to really think about it. I'm like, Band, just like what we just talked about here, I was being a total hypocrite. I'm like, Band could actually do these things because it doesn't have to be the only one. So I find myself kind of falling into those whale patterns, and I have to shake myself out and go, there's more room for everybody. Even though I don't own anything or own this one project, it can probably do great things. That's the big deal. So, all right. So that makes a lot of sense. Let me come back here. I wonder though, have you ever tried to explain Ethereum to somebody like brand new who knows nothing about cryptocurrency?
Yes, but it's not a super quick conversation, I would say. You can't just like break it down in one or two sentences, whereas you can just pretty much say Bitcoin is like digital gold almost. And if anyone understands store value characteristics, they get it. And so, whereas when you say programmable blockchain and DApps, which are decentralized applications, people's like, whoa, you just lost me. What are we talking about here?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Cause like you just said, like these billionaires are like, well, how much do they really need to know? Right. Like, Palihapitiya, I always say his name wrong. Chamath Palihapitiya. He was on MSNBC, and they were questioning him. Or no, it was on a podcast, and they were asking him about Bitcoin. Of course, he had the great answers. And then they started to get into DeFi, and he's like, I don't know what that is. He goes, what are you talking about? He goes, I don't really follow anything, and that's really, so it's going to be Bitcoin and everything else. And then later on, he had to explain like, hey, I don't follow it because I don't really care about it. I got a ton of Bitcoin, and that's what I want. I think is going to be massive. So I think it's the same thing here with like people not looking at that next level. And even, like I said, even I'm guilty of this myself. So yeah, I can see it.
And honestly, I fall victim to it. And I think people who only is comfortable having a certain amount of cryptos is okay with that. Like you only talk about a certain amount of cryptos on your channel when you do talking about a specific crypto. And same as me. Now, granted, I've talked about BTT the most, of course, but but I only talk about a certain amount of cryptos. And then one reason why I really talk about it as well is because it's one of the main cryptos that gets the most views. So with that being said, that means most of my audience kind of want to hear about that. Now, if I have actually something to talk about it, cool, I'll make a video on it, but I'm not just gonna make a video on it just to make a video. And then secondly, I'll say this, not financial advice, and I'm not calling BTT a crap coin or anything like that, but this is just the concept. Nothing wrong with investing in, I guess, a crap coin if you know when to take profits, right? Now, on the other end, I will say this. For me, some people say it's going to take a while for BTT to hit a dollar or to hit whichever. Do I think it can actually do it in time come? Absolutely. But is it going to take time? Yes. But this is the goal. The goal isn't to just the goal was to buy when you could buy 1 million tokens for $1,000. Not now when it costs you 3,000 or 3,500 to buy that same million tokens, because if the more quantity you have, the less you need the price to go up. So if you got 2 million, you don't need it to hit a dollar now to make $1 million. You know what I mean? So that's the concept that I wanted to really bring, because it was so cheap and I saw the legitimate use case of it. So I saw it being here when the smoke clears, and it was cheap enough for people to get into and kind of set themselves up if they're patient. And so that was kind of the mindset behind it.
Yeah, I can see that. It just takes a lot of time. And some of these projects, they just don't, make it. But it's like I talk about, like if you invest into 10 different projects, whether they're crap or not, and you got one humongous winner, that's all you need. All you need is like one big winner and then maybe 2 to be okay. And then the rest of them can just die on the vine, and it's not a big deal. And again, me and Mike, this is just investment opinion, not investment advice. We're just 2 guys who like to invest in the cryptocurrency. And then before we move on to that G7 summit and what happened with Biden and Putin, or mostly Putin, I want to say that when I try to explain Ethereum to people who don't know what Ethereum is, it is like super hard. So I can understand, like, just to go from, let's go from Bitcoin to Ethereum and then go, oh, and also there's this thing called Cardano, and also things like VeChain. It's like impossible. But I will tell you, one guy who explained it really really well was Terry Crews. He was on the Defiant Ones, and it was his podcast. And he goes, Bitcoin to me is okay. I mean, it's pretty good. It's a store of value. He goes, it's like that gold. He goes, but I say Ethereum is like my oil, because it runs the machines, and that machine is everything that I can build on it for my businesses, for my structures, for everything else. I'm going to build everything on that for the oil, and Bitcoin's my store of value. And I was like, that's pretty good. Terry Crews, right? Yeah,
simple. Kind of like selling the shovels instead of digging for the gold concept.
Yeah, exactly right. So yeah, that is the one. All right. So we got that out of the way, and let's go to this one. So everybody was freaking out because Biden was going to the G7 summit, and everybody was worried that he was going to start to talk about regulating cryptocurrency, and we're going to stamp out and stamp it off, and it's illicit activities and blah, blah, blah. However, I think this was actually our best case scenario here. And this was just dropped 4 hours ago. And all they did was say, hey, Russia, why are you hodling these people? And all that really came down was this. The Biden administration said earlier that combating ransomware is a priority for the administration, adding that it would expand or be expanding cryptocurrency analysis to fight ransomware attacks. And all they really did, in this whole article, I can just sum it up here in this quote. We call on Russia to urgently identify, disrupt, and hold to account those with its borders who conduct ransomware attacks, abuse virtual currency to launder ransoms, and other cybercrimes. That's all they really want. They didn't say, like, let's make sure that we clamp down on Bitcoin or just totally do away with cryptos and only use stable coins or CBDCs. So I'm like, I think this is kind of like a win. Mike, I think you got an alternative opinion, though. Let me hear it. Which I think people are going to like this one. Go ahead.
When we talk about, I think this is a way that we see certain regulations set in, kind of how we were talking about behind the scenes is the first thing we look at is everything we make far as capital gains and trades will be taxed pretty much in crypto. And one question I was going to ask you as well, as we were looking at things we were going to cover, kind of got my mind thinking is, does the Fed and SEC, do they have enough information? This is a question because I'm just kind of asking out there. Do they have enough information to 100% imply regulation for crypto? Right. And so depending on how we look at that, or I'm sure there's a lot smarter people who can probably break that down, rather they do or they don't. But let's just say, for example, they don't. Then this kind of gives us the ability to kind of say, well, how much relevance does this article actually have, right? And so we look at it that way. But I think this is a way that we slowly see regulation setting in phases, because blockchain is to bring everyone to a level playing field. You know, the world is just not in the US, just not in Russia, just not in UK, right? And so this is for all 7 billion plus people. So this is for regulation for the entire, you know, population. And so when we look at it from that scheme of things, it's not just, hey, we need regulation in the most banked area. No, we're trying to get regulation now in the unbanked areas as well, where they didn't have financial institutions established. And so looking at it that way, it kind of changes the scope, I think.
See, there's a lot to unpack there. First of all, I will just say this. In the old days, it was pretty easy to get everybody in line, just go, look, we're the powerful, and you're just going to follow it this way, right? And now we have like in El Salvador going, you know what? We know that you in America classify a cryptocurrency as a property, but we're going to use it as legal tender. And then you've also seen places in Uruguay, and then also the president of Tanzania say, we want cryptocurrency here as a currency. So now you're going to have this big dichotomy of people who are like, well, we want to do this and we want to do that. How are they going to do that? I think there's going to be a mesh. And then the second thing I will say is like when you talk about the people who are going to regulate, do they have enough information? Well, let me tell you, just between us, there's nobody watching, just us, man. This is me. There's a guy that I have on my show who is who knows a lot about different things that are going on in the upper levels, and he does a lot of things with crypto. That's all I can really tell you. And what he tells me, and you guys can probably figure who this guy is. He tells me that when he goes to meet with these heads of states and people who are like up there, you know, like the aides or like the actual congressmen, he's like, they don't know. They don't know, and it's up to me to kind of bring it to them. I'm like, hey, could you figure that out as fast as we can so we can get some regulation? He's like, it's going to take a long time, Rob. And I said, well, how close are we? He's like, it's going to take a long time. So when you said that, it brought me back to that. And then it also brings me back to like what Elizabeth Warren said. And she's like, we got to regulate this because it's really bad and it's just an awful thing. And then you got like a Ted Cruz going, Bitcoin is like fantastic. You should get into it, but cautiously. It's the wild, wild west, man. I don't know. But I do like your response, because you said it's that insidious way to get into under people's skin to say, okay, here's a little bit of something. And then all of a sudden it's just this little other thing. And then before we know it, blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's like, and some people they're gonna love this part. It's like aliens, right? All of a sudden you see a couple of videos and they're like, yeah, we have some, or that doesn't exist. Then all of a sudden, okay, we did shoot this video. Then all of a sudden it's like, oh, they're really here. Who knows? And then lastly, let's finish up with this one. I want to hear your take on this one. So we know El Salvador came through and they passed the law, which is amazing, to be able to make Bitcoin as legal tender. I mean, it was amazing to actually say, we're going to do it. And there's one thing to actually do it. And they did it. It's amazing. I wish that could work that fast in America. But on top of that, the Central American Bank for Economic Integration, 17 member nation states, Bitcoin's a really big deal. And we're really proud that they've made us a part of this new policy. First of all, I had never heard of the Central American Bank for Economic Integration. If you don't know them, that's okay. Neither did I. It's an international, multilateral, developmental financial institution. Resources are continuously invested in projects that foster development to reduce poverty and inequality. That sounds pretty good. Strengthen regional integration and the competitive insertion of its member countries in the global economy. So here's my question. Is this good news, or is this just a Trojan horse? Or do you think this could mean that more countries are going into the fold of crypto and digital assets? What do you think, Mike?
I think this is a sign of more adoption, of course. And then kind of a question as well, not really a question, but kind of rhetorical, I guess. I think it's easier for companies who kind of have that unbanked financial situation. Yeah.
Yes.
Easier to make Bitcoin and digital assets more a legal tender, because they didn't already have a lot of regulation as far as fiat, right? And so I think it kind of makes it a little easier. And I think that's could be what we are seeing. And so I think it's easier to see maybe smaller countries who are now getting banked with digital assets. They're able to say this, hey, we're going to go ahead and allow legal tender on Bitcoin, because they weren't going by all of the rules and regulations, whereas the US may have been going by, or China may have been going by. So I definitely think it's a sign of adoption. And I also think it forces the market in a certain way far as adoption as well, because when you put that type of news out, even if it was to go back and say, okay, we're no longer going to do this.
Yeah.
What would that cause? Right. And so,
can you imagine if they said, okay, we're going to go back, uproar, right? Civil unrest.
yeah,
That'd be bad. That would be really bad. I see a little war coming on, not a war, but an economic war between first world type of like North America, Canada, not so much Canada. Canada's really cool. They don't really care so much. Europe and going, hey, we want to regulate this as an asset, not as a currency, because I'm not 100% sure, but if it's how do you tax a currency? You know what I mean? I don't know if that's
true.
Helpful. I mean, yeah, unless there's an arbitrage opportunity and you trade it between one and two things, but still, if it's a currency, it's a currency. So I don't know. But that's what America wants. They want as an asset or a property the tax 11 tar of it. And now here we are, we're here. I don't know.
I think that's where stable coins come in, you know?
Oh, don't say it, Mike. Don't say that awful word. Do you think, hey, which stable coins do you use to make transfers or do things? Do you use USDC, use Tether, or what do you got?
I use USDC. I have used DAI, and then I'm also using TrueUSD.
How does it like with TrueUSD? Is it pretty fast? Fees okay?
It's an ERC20 token, you know, so it's on the Ethereum blockchain. But one thing I like about it is that you can pretty much convert it into anything, whether it's Bitcoin, USD. So just a tip for those that's watching. Say, for example, you're staking, and say you're cashing out. Well, let's just say you're using TrueUSD. All you need to do is convert that in a service like Change Now, Atomic Wallet, anything like Changely, any decentralized exchange. Put TrueUSD in there, exchange it for USDC, and you can use it on Voyager, Coinbase, Uphold, any of those. All of them have USDC, Binance, and then you can just cash right out to fiat.
That's awesome.
Super easy way.
Yeah. Have you used Changely a lot in the past?
I have.
How's
the fees can be somewhat high sometimes, but they tell you what's going on. But if depending on what you're doing, it could definitely be worth it. I'll say that. Oh
yeah. Listen to that, Benz. Benz is the one that is the creator and founder, I guess, of Changely. What I want to do was I want to take Changely and integrate that into my website, so it could just be right there to make it easy for people. But I didn't know that you could do the TrueUSD type of swap and it could do all these things. That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then you were talking a lot about staking, which I thought was interesting. How does that change your whole, I don't know if you have an exit strategy per se, but does that change your exit strategy for crypto moving forward?
I would say yes and no, because my mindset when I got into crypto was complete long-term anyway. Was just because when I was in the stock market, I was 70%, 80% a dividend investor, which is long-term. I was investing for cash flow. And so that's kind of the same approach as well that I'm taking with crypto, having cryptos that I believe is going to be here, but allow to make income off of them as well. And so with DeFi, and I'm glad you brought that up because I had a question for you, but with DeFi, it allows you to kind of make the same amount of money with less money. Of course, there's more risk, but if you understand how to use DEX, which are decentralized exchanges, if you understand how to use those and understand the risk compared to your risk tolerance, you can truly shortcut your time frame on what you may need, you know?
Have you ever used like the DEXs, like a zero exchange or someplace like that, and been a liquidity provider and done all those things with like farming? I personally don't get into it, but I know a lot of people, like even Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank, he's been talking about how much money he's made just doing that. Have you done it yet, or you don't do it too much?
I do pretty much the normal staking. Like for example, Pancake Swap. If you just do the normal syrup pools, you stake cake and you can get whatever cryptocurrency based off of whatever pool you're participating in. right? And so for me, what I like to do is try to find stable coin pools. So that way you already have to deal with the fluctuation from staking cake or whatever DEX you're using based off of going up and down. But if you use the stable coin way, you're locking in your profit. So you're hedging against it. And so that's what I like to do.
So when you do like stable coins, like what kind of like yields have you been getting? I mean, pretty solid, or like just like 1%, something like that?
Well, I say this right now on Pancake Swap, I'm earning about 71% APR on True USD, and that's
No
just for
way.
staking cake. That's no LP. That's nothing like that. And I actually showed it not on the video I put out today, but on the last video. I actually showed it, not what I'm personally have invested, but just like
how to do it.
Paying. And so when you break that down, that's almost like 6% a month. And so when you look at it, you take every 10K is $600, right? And so when you look at it, I mean, that's massive, man. And so that's on a stable coin as well. And so that's coming right to my wallet, right? And so I can literally take that True USD if I need to, if I really need it in fiat, use Changely, use Atomic Wallet, convert it into USDC and send it to a centralized exchange, and then boom, you're good to go.
Oh man, that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. So everybody, so now do you see why I have Mike here as one of my recommended YouTubers to watch? That's how it goes, man. That is fantastic information. So what I'm going to do is let me pull something up real quick. First of all, if you want to find Mike's channel, just look for Mike the Investor. It's pretty simple. That's all you need right there. Mike the Investor. Or if you're like pretty lazy like myself and you don't want to even look it up, all you got to do is go to any of my videos that are out there over the last 3 or 4 months or so. And then what you do, click on the link in the description as you go through here at the very bottom, YouTube channel recommendations, Mike the Investor, low cap gem finder. You click them right there and off you go. So these are the ones that I think are good and watch every so often. Mike, you said it all today. Look at that. Look at you. Look at you doing everything great. Man, that was good. I got to get in that Pancake Swap thing. So before we take off, 2 things. Let's go through words of wisdom and give me some price predictions. What do you think end of the year? Give me anything you want to talk about. Anything you want to talk about.
Oh man. Well, let's start with the words of wisdom first.
Words of wisdom.
Words of wisdom, I just say be patient. Understand that we're truly still early in crypto. You know, and regardless of the fluctuations, you're early. If you're investing in good projects, you're going to be fine.
My dog just getting out of the pool. All right.
Nice. But yeah, I just say, just understand you're early and just kind of be patient. But I mean, like Rob said, I mean, if you bought high, it's a little bit harder to have diamond hands, of course. But, you know, I would say the more you educate yourself, the easier it is to hold investments. And the reason why I say that is because you have more knowledge on what you're holding. And this is why, you know, right now they may call people who are investing in crypto crazy. Well, we've done the research to understand this is the future. So for the people that may have not done the research yet, yeah, they're going to call us crazy because they don't see the opportunity yet. So just understand with crypto, you're early, be patient, and things will happen. Things will happen.
That's a good point. You just be patient, because it's easy to think, oh, I'm gonna be a millionaire overnight. All you gotta do is just buy a bunch of Dogecoin. It doesn't work like that. Usually there's a little bit of work involved. And easy come, easy go. Watch any documentary on the lottery system, and you'll see everybody who makes a lot of money loses a lot of money. And then Mike, you're gonna come back for our end of the month price prediction video. It's gonna be a bunch of us on this one. But give me like your top 2 price predictions on any crypto that you want to. Just we'll leave somebody with, we'll leave people with a little teaser. Yeah.
Okay. So for IOTA, since I don't talk about it much, I still think IOTA can hit $10 by the end of the year. Now, this all depends on what the market does, of course. Okay. But I still think IOTA can hit $10. And then for Digibyte.
That's right. You're big into Digibyte. I remember that.
Oh, yeah. I still think, and now this depends on the market, but I still think we can see 50 cents to $1 for Digibyte.
Hold on. So everybody can see it. Okay. Wow. So we're looking at about 6 cents here. What was the all-time high? It was much higher than that.
Like 11 cents, like 11, 12 cents on Digibyte.
50 cents can happen. I got you. And then the other one, IOTA. We both had some of the core members on our show for IOTA. I always thought it was a good project. I just didn't see why it just didn't get any traction. So IOTA, we're looking at $110. What do you think at the end of the year?
I think it can hit 10, which would be almost a 9x from here, give or take, from this actual price. But I mean, I think IOTA also is ahead of its time. And I think that's also why it may not have the traction that it, kind of like in certain ways of Cardano. Like it took a minute for Cardano to catch on because they had so many layers to their project, to their roadmap. And so, and I think because they were just ahead of their time, and I think it's harder to understand things that are ahead of their time. Think about computers that can break your code in a matter of seconds. I mean, that's going to be coming in the next 8 to 10 years, right? Well, IOTA has already prepped for that. And so, but people don't understand this yet, you know? So I think that's also kind of the result of it.
It's true. Quantum computers, they're right around the corner. You got to future-proof yourself, right? And Cardano want to do that too. And even me, like Cardano, like I used to talk trash about all the time. Like, these guys are so slow. They're not even good entrepreneurs. You just throw stuff against the wall and see what sticks. Then of course, then we had all those hacks with like Wi-Fi and sushi swap. And I was like, forget what I said. That doesn't make any sense. So now I totally get it. All right. So guys, we've gone about an hour or so. Remember, you can find Mike the Investor either in the description of my video or just simple search Mike the Investor for some pretty great videos. And that's it for today. So if you found some value out of that one, thumbs up, consider subscribing. And that's all we got. So thanks so much. We appreciate it. And we will see you on the next video where we talk about price predictions and all those great stuff.